Listen to this one. Mind-reading technology might soon come from the realm of science fiction now to fact. We're talking about Elon Musk's latest side project. I believe it's a side hustle, his startup Neuralink.
Well, it sounds like science fiction, but tonight Elon Musk says he plans to make it a reality. He's creating a brain implant that merges our brains with artificial intelligence.
Now talking up a brain implant technology that they just put this chip, I guess, into your skull. And then you just, I don't know what good it does, but it's there, and then it follows you and tracks you. So this way my wife could keep track of my Dunkin' Donuts visits and all the rest. I don't know where this goes.
And Elon Musk hopes to have the brain implant inside a patient's head by late next year.
Elon Musk had positioned this as a way of potentially treating cognitive degenerative diseases.
Right.
But if you actually go back and look at other technologies, like for example gene editing, that started off as a way to help with therapies and medical usage, but has now sort of turned into something more onerous, and you sort of worry this goes in a similar direction.
And I've said a lot about AI over the years, but I think even in a benign AI scenario, we will be left behind. And so hopefully it is a benign scenario, but I think with a high bandwidth brain-machine interface, I think we can actually go along for the ride, and we can effectively have the option of merging with AI. I think this is extremely important.
Elon Musk wants to download your brain. He's the entrepreneur behind Tesla cars and SpaceX, of course, but he's troubled by where artificial intelligence is leading humanity. So he's trying to stay one step ahead with an idea to implant our brains with computer chips. For some people, it's a sci-fi step too far.
Not machine, not man. I'm more.
Musk announced his project on Twitter, and the reactions came quick. It's hoped that this new technology might help combat eating disorders or depression and maybe the effects of Parkinson's disease, although obviously such operations on people's brains have their significant risks. Behind it all, though, is Musk's suspicions against AI. In 2015, he donated $10 million to a movement to stop artificial intelligence from turning against humans.
I wanted to create Neuralink was primarily as an offset to the existential risk associated with artificial intelligence. I think human intelligence will not be able to beat AI. So then, if as the saying goes, if you can't beat him, join him, kind of thing. So I think having basically find a way to link human will en masse to the outcome of AI. Having AI be an extension of individual human will, that's really the point of Neuralink. Now, along the way, I think there'll be a lot of good that's achieved in addressing any brain damage that's as a result of a stroke or a lesion or something congenital. Or just loss of memory when you get old, that kind of thing, and that'll happen well before it becomes a sort of brain AI symbiote situation. So you'll see it coming. It won't happen all of a sudden. But yeah, I do think it increases the long-term relevance of human exploration. I think it's for me it increased my motivation.
Anybody can do 3 huge visionary future companies. I suppose it's Elon Musk. Look, he is great at making things that people don't think could ever happen. People are actually building hyperloops because he talked about the idea. So if this can be done, he can probably orchestrate it.
I guess my question would be, and Ryan, maybe weigh in on this, what would comprise getting something done or doing something in this area? Is it just to kind of, back some of the ongoing deep research into the area? He's talking about an actual product at some point. What's the relative need for this anytime soon?
So first of all, I think this is what we all wanted, right? I think that to watch entrepreneurs or technologists go over and tackle these, what I'd call moonshots with with these aggressive funds and a lot of experience in getting stuff done. That's what we've all been hoping for. And you've seen it with Sean Parker, who's done a lot in cancer. You saw Brian Johnson, the Braintree founder, work on something called Kernel. We don't know a lot about our brains. I mean, you're seeing this with NFL studies. We don't know. We all have one. We're all worried about productivity, not to mention all the healthcare benefits that are going to come out of this. This is awesome. I wish more people were doing this.
Is this a difficult thing to raise money to do, Henry? I mean, are we reaching a point where the pitches get so outlandish that investors are nervous about committing?
I don't know where they are and Neuralink is. I mean, it depends. But there is a lot of money that goes into biotech research with 10-year payouts. There are a lot of investors who know how to do that. You stage it all the way along. It's not like you commit $500 million on day one. So there are ways to invest in this that make sense. And I'm sure that they can follow that. They'll have to show progress along the way.
I mean, I certainly get why a lot of these.
If we really could have an interface with a computer, with an artificial intelligence that could read our minds, you can imagine a case in which we could be immortal. But that would completely change humanity and what it means to be human.
Merging the human brain with a computer would truly change our species forever. Researchers are developing technology that can transfer data between computers and our brains, and even read people's minds. For now, we have the power to detect brainwaves and track electrical pulses within the neurons in our brains, and researchers are using this information, however vague, to aid the differently abled and make life easier for everyone. Among these researchers is 16-year-old Alex Pinkerton.
Really, all that we're working on is a brain-computer interface that utilizes graphene, and hopefully, if our math is correct, it'll be sensitive enough to read the magnetic fields of human thought.
It was in the 1970s that the Department of Defense first started funding brain-computer interface research. That market is expected to reach a value of $1.72 billion by 2022. Big players like Elon Musk and Facebook have teased their entrance into the market, while other companies are showing their work in action, like Control Labs, who created a wristband that measures electrical pulses from the brain to the neurons in a person's arm, allowing them to control a computer. New and exciting research is pouring out of universities like MIT and the University of California in San Francisco. So what is a brain-computer interface?
It's a way in which a computer can take information directly from the brain without you having to type or speak it in and translate that into some kind of action.
That's what Pinkerton is working on, a connection between the brain and a device, like your phone or a prosthesis. He was first inspired by his dad, who works on clean energy.
My dad came in to talk to our class when I was in 3rd grade about graphene, just to give a little presentation. I'm not sure why, but that sort of sparked my interest, and I had just been thinking of why isn't this being used everywhere if it's like the perfect material? And so I started thinking of applications, and at first it was mainly for the military or something. Now it's sort of focused away from that into, the brain-computer interface and VR, maybe super immersive VR. Obviously it could help the disabled.
Thinking about it, I know, is artificial intelligence. It's something that you and I have as a shared interest, and it's something that our audience is interested in as well. The question here is, a lot of experts in AI don't share the same level of concern that you do about the dangers of AI.
Fools.
What
Famous last words.
What specifically do you believe that they don't?
Well, the biggest issue I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do. And they think they're smarter than they actually are. In general, we are all much smarter than we think we are, but much less smart, dumber than we think we are, by a lot. So this tends to plague smart people. They just can't. They define themselves by their intelligence, and they don't like the idea that a machine could be way smarter than them. So they discount the idea, which is fundamentally flawed. That's the wishful thinking situation. I'm really quite close to, I'm very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. You can see this in things like AlphaGo, which went from in the span of maybe 6 to 9 months, it went from being unable to beat even a reasonably good Go player to then beating the European world champion, who was ranked 600, then beating Lisa Doll 4-5, who had been world champion for many years, then beating the current world champion, then beating everyone while playing simultaneously. Then there was Alpha Zero, which crushed Alpha Go 100-0. And Alpha Zero just learned by playing itself, and it can play basically any game that you put the rules in for. Whatever rules you give it, it literally read the rules, play the game, and be superhuman for any game. Nobody expected that rate of improvement. If you ask those same experts who think AI is not progressing at the rate that I'm saying, I think you will find that their predictions for things like Go and other AI advancements have their batting average is quite weak. It's not good. We'll see this also with self-driving. I think probably by end of next year, self-driving will encompass essentially all modes of driving and be at least 100 to 200% safer than a person by the end of next year. We're talking like maybe 18 months from now. NHTSA did a study on Tesla's Autopilot version 1, which is relatively primitive, and found that it was a 45% reduction in highway accidents. And that's despite Autopilot 1 being just version 1. Version 2, I think, will be at least 2 or 3 times better. That's the current version that's running right now. So the rate of improvement is really dramatic. We have to figure out some way to ensure that the advent of digital superintelligence is one which is symbiotic with humanity. I think that's the single biggest existential crisis that we face, and the most pressing one.
Hello, everybody. So that video was not Shutterstock. That was actually Neuralink. So that's actual video from the company. So if you want to get a sense for what it's like to work at Neuralink, that video is indicative of the atmosphere of Neuralink. It's an incredibly talented team, and you're going to hear a lot from them tonight. So we're going to actually go quite into depth on what we're doing, why we're doing, how we're doing it. And I'm just incredibly impressed with the caliber of talent at Neuralink. And in fact, the main reason for doing this presentation is recruiting. And this will be a slow process where we will gradually increase the issues that we solve until ultimately we can do a full brain-machine interface. Yeah, this is going to sound pretty weird, but achieve a sort of symbiosis with artificial intelligence. But I think with a high bandwidth brain-machine interface, I think we can actually go along for the ride. And we can effectively have the option of merging with AI. I think this is extremely important.
Composed of nearly 100 billion cells called neurons. Neurons come in many complex shapes, but generally they have a dendritic arbor, a cell body called a soma, and an axon. The neurons of your brain connect to form a large network through axon-dendrite junctions called synapses. At these connection points, neurons communicate with each other using chemical signals called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are released from the end of an axon in response to an electrical spike called an action potential. When a cell receives enough of the right kind of neurotransmitter input, a chain reaction is triggered that causes an action potential to fire, and the neuron to in turn relay messages to its own downstream synapses. Action potentials produce an electric field that spreads from the neuron and can be detected by placing electrodes nearby, allowing recording of the information represented by a neuron.
Our goal is to record from and stimulate spikes in neurons and do so in a way that is orders of magnitude more than anything that's been done to date, and safe and good enough that you can. It's not like a major operation. It's sort of equivalent to sort of a LASIK type of thing. So this is in contrast to the best FDA-approved system, which is like a Parkinson's deep brain stimulation thing, which would have on the order of 10 electrodes. So the system, even in version 1 that we're going to unveil today, is capable of 1,000 times more electrodes than the best system out there, and they're all read and write. So this is really quite, I mean, for something to be 1,000 times more than what is publicly approved is quite a big difference. So there's very tiny threads that are about a tenth, roughly, of the cross-sectional area of a human hair. So they're extremely tiny threads. In fact, the threads that we have, like I said, even in version 1, are about the same size as a neuron. So if you're going to go stick something in your brain, you want it to not be giant, you want it to be tiny, and to be approximately on par with the things that are already there, the neurons.
Edward Snowden, former CIA employee and NSA contractor. Edward Snowden, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
I was talking in the context of this whole story about surveillance and information collection, mass scale monitoring and collecting profiles of everyone's private lives, both by the government and corporations, that this would be a 2-week story because the media would very quickly lose their focus on it. The governments would act to suppress reporting on this information. And what we actually saw was all of the government's attempts to sort of hide information or explain away their abuses actually led to further reporting and further interest. And now everybody in the world understands generally what's going on. Now, the problem is having a general understanding of something that's so technical and complex is not enough to protect yourself. But what's really changed most dramatically from the world of 2013 to the world of today is everybody is aware that Facebook is up to no good, that Google is up to no good, that all of these companies are really trying to shape and influence not just our societies, but our lives, our buying habits, every kind of general behavior that we have in a deeply targeted and personal way. And it's technology that is enabling this and making it all possible for the first time. Now again, that hasn't solved the problem, but the first step to solving any problem is we have to create a shared sense of understanding. We need a common set of facts, and today we have that.
1 year ago, Tucker spoke to Gordon Chang about this system. Watch.
What we have in China is that there's so many people there, of course. The government wants to control them, and so what they're doing is they're collecting data. They're collecting data from 600 million cameras that they'll have in place in 2020. They're going to have, traffic checks, all the rest of it. This is being rolled out, and it's being rolled out very quickly. So, for instance, you've got people who are not allowed to board planes and trains because their social credit score is far too low.
I'm not kidding. For example, if you have of frivolous spending that'll work against you in China. Smoking in a smoke-free zone, that'll cost you points. Is that the society you want to live in? Guess what? It's coming to America, courtesy of Silicon Valley. Brett Larson says it's true, and he is on Fox News Headlines 24/7. Brett, that's scary stuff in China. It started in 2014. They're rolling it out now.
Yes.
What do you mean it's heading here?
It's heading here, and it's kind of already here. And when you think about it, we share a lot of personal information on Facebook. We share when we're out with our friends. We might share when we're out having drinks with our friends. Maybe we're on the beach. Maybe we're having a fun vacation.
A traffic light with facial recognition. Cross on red, face a public shaming. And lose social credit points. In some Chinese cities, it's already a reality. Even those who sort their trash incorrectly have to reckon with point deductions in some places, as well as the penalties for low scores, like losing the right to ride the fast train. The point system is scheduled for full implementation across China by the end of 2020.
Well, last week, technology company Apple was forced to apologise after it emerged that external contractors had listened to thousands of snippets of conversations between Apple users and Siri, Apple's voice-activated assistant. Now, it might have been a headline that some of you missed, but it was a headline that didn't surprise me at all. I worked for communications ministers, two of them, one in the Howard years and one afterwards, and Apple says that listening was in fact research, and they undertook it to improve Siri's responses to human requests. But from a company that prides itself on user privacy, it was a particularly embarrassing revelation. Of course, so much data is being harvested by technology companies in today's modern connected age that I doubt many people have a true handle on what's being collected about them.
I think, Peter, the big development is the machines not only can identify people, cameras can not only identify people, like up to 15 people in one scene, but they can also work out what you're doing. So in places like China, for example, which, I suppose is this dystopian example of what we don't want to have happening, they're using it for jaywalking. There was one city that was in a report I read last year where they had a big monitor up at the intersection, and if anyone jaywalked or went walked through the don't walk period, they would be shamed on this big TV, and it was the actual computer attached to the cameras that was making those choices. Now, this can cause mistakes, and in that case it did. But the other point is that local governments kind of adopt their own systems with this, and they're starting to in the Northern Territory and Queensland. Stadiums in Queensland are installing cameras with AI capability. It's being looked at in Perth as well. And you've got everyone collecting data and analysing it, and maybe under the radar swapping it with each other, and that becomes a really big issue in terms of any vestige of privacy.
The biggest mistake that I see artificial intelligence researchers making is assuming that they're intelligent. Yeah, they're not compared to AI, and so a lot of them cannot imagine something silly. So what do you do with a situation like that? What do you do with a situation like that? I'm not sure. I hope they're nice. I mean, I have obviously some. I think in a situation where the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. That's what Neuralink is about. Is like, can we go along for the ride with AI? I mean, I really think that there should be other companies like Neuralink, essentially to create a high bandwidth interface to the brain, because right now we are already a cyborg. People don't realize we are already a cyborg because we are so well integrated with our phones and our computers. The phone is almost like an extension of yourself. If you forget your phone, it's like a missing limb. But the bandwidth, the communication bandwidth to the phone is very low, especially input. So, in fact, input bandwidth to computers has actually gone down because of typing with 2 thumbs as opposed to 10 fingers. There's a big reduction in bandwidth. Input bandwidth has gone up because of video and imagery. I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm a naturally optimistic person, to be clear. I'm not saying, hey, doom and gloom. I'm just saying this is the apparent pattern. The rate of change of technology is incredibly fast. It is outpacing our ability to understand it. Well, I'm not sure, is that good or bad? I don't know. I mean, this is the first time in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth that it's been possible to extend life beyond Earth. Before this, it was not possible. How long will this window be open? It may be open for a long time, or it may be open for a short time. I think it would be wise to assume that it is open for a short time. I think we should not take it for granted that consciousness will continue, because we have not encountered any aliens. Where are the aliens? This is the Fermi paradox. This is one of the most important questions. How come we've not found any aliens? There's people out there who think we found aliens. Trust me, I would know. We have not. Okay. People ask me, you've been to Area 51. Okay, please. SpaceX actually has Area 59. It's even better, 8 better than 51. So, among the set of actions we can take that are likely to increase the scope and scale of consciousness such that we are better able to understand the nature of the universe, one of those actions is to become a multi-planet species, or ensure that life is multi-planetary, but close the loop on being less wrong about future. I would say that's the right way to think about education. I mean, down the road with a Neuralink, you can just upload any subject instantly. So it'll be like the Matrix. You want to fly a helicopter, no problem. Well, helicopters will fly themselves, but you know, if you wanted to do whatever, any given skill, you just upload it instantly. I mean, the way education works right now, it's extremely low bandwidth. It's extremely slow. Lectures are the worst, really. It's like very slow. Yeah, just try to predict the future with less error. This is very hard, as you were saying. I'm not sure it's 99.9%, but it's not very good, generally, our prediction of the future. But I think often people don't try. The first thing is try. If you don't try, okay, you know, you got to try, and then adjust based on the error of your prior predictions.
It's great human beings make mistakes. It's great human beings learn from mistakes. It's great to die.
Haha, that's probably true.
Thank you. Yeah, you cannot live long.
I just like, yeah.